Thank you, Mr. President. March 14, 1965 saw my family, mum, dad, 2 brothers and 2 sisters and I, sail from Southampton, England on the SS Fairsky, 10-pound tourists bound for a new life in Perth, Western Australia, the other side of the world, far from family and friends. As a 5-year-old, it was a great adventure, and one which then, unbeknown to me, would take me on the roller coaster ride of life to this place and this day. I have to thank my mum and dad, who sadly are no longer with us, but here in my heart, for taking the bold step and having the courage to seek a better life for the family and emigrate to the lucky country. About 3 weeks later, we arrived in Fremantle. I remember my mum crying as we were disembarking and wondering why, until some years later she confessed to having less than a favourable first opinion of our new home. We were taken to an army camp on Lantana Avenue in Greylands. This camp later became known as the Greylands Immigration Training and Reception Centre. Former army barracks were converted into makeshift dormitories, and 5 families were accommodated in each dormitory. The accommodation was very basic and proved to be a tough induction to our new Australian life. Dormitories were nissen huts constructed of corrugated iron. The floors were bare timber and there was no wall lining. They, like the beds, were very uncomfortable. There were also huts for laundry, meals and ablutions. However, despite facilities being rudimentary and limited, we were together as a family, and as mum and dad had survived the Second World War, a minor inconvenience. We were told Greylands was temporary and only for a couple of days, which turned out to be 10 weeks. A far cry, you would think, from the standard of facility and assistance afforded to those seeking new lives in Australia today. However, aside from our passage being somewhat safer, not so very different, and if not worse in some ways. Life progressed, and as a family we began to make the most of opportunity as it presented and make our way. I could not admit to being a big fan of school. It did not allow me to be me, and there were too many rules. In a report card, one of my primary school teachers stated, "David is a 10-horsepower engine and a 5-horsepower body." Today would possibly be diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, whereas to me I was just an active kid. Primary school ended. We moved to the suburb of Lockridge, and as there was no high school close, I commenced secondary education at Hampton Senior High School, Morley. High school had the same rules, and due to my excitable nature, it was decided at the age of 14 I would leave school and take an apprenticeship as a cabinet maker in Bayswater, further from Lockridge and requiring me to ride a push bike to and from work. For different reasons, I was not destined to be a cabinet maker, and following numerous other jobs, eventually gained an apprenticeship as a motor mechanic. I completed my apprenticeship, and life continued to bring its challenges, achievements, highs and lows. But I began to realise sometimes you could make your own luck, or conversely make a bad decision which would have a downriver effect later in life. As in most lives, there are significant events which make us proud, laugh or cry. People come and go, and a million stories are born. I always seemed to be looking for something better to ensure I could provide for those closest to me and that they would want for nothing. In December 1986, I joined the Army Reserve with a view to joining the regular army. But as times before, life took a left turn, and for whatever reason, this never eventuated. Then at the age of 32 in 1991, after much consideration and a few expressions of concern from old mates, I entered the Maylands Police Academy as a recruit and began yet another new career. About this time, I realised that here was a job that suited me. I thought, great, they're actually paying me to do the things I like: ride motorcycles, driving V8s and wearing a uniform, blue being my favourite colour. I progressed within the service and found that after 5 years, the police decided I was ready for country service, and I was told that if I did not like this, then I perhaps should consider a new career. The common term for that unfair, unpopular and inequitable management-initiated practice was known to be shanghaied. The level of personal discontent, of course, cannot be understated, but in true military fashion, I soldiered on and moved without my family to Narrogin for my first country posting. I soon began to understand why the dreaded forced move to the country caused such angst within police families. Police housing was poor, to say the least, and many services taken for granted in the city were not available in the bush. I found that policing was different here also. Despite the differences, I found country folk to be proud, practical, hard-working and resilient individuals with an immense sense of community. Initially, not everyone appreciated the brand of policing I brought with me from the big smoke, and it took me a while to adjust, but of all the qualities country folk possess, benevolence and patience are right up there. Lessons learnt and friendship made here would put me in good stead when I later ventured bush again. However, I am glad to say service conditions are much better these days. Returning to Perth, I was later posted to the Major Crash Investigation Section to investigate fatal and serious traffic crashes. I learned the value of life and experienced the worst and best of human nature. Working alongside people dealing with senseless loss of a loved one through tragic and often avoidable circumstance further kindled opinions and beliefs I was beginning to form, but as yet unsure of the reason. After nearly 3 years, I was posted to the Road Safety Section, a more proactive role where the intent was to help prevent death and injury on roads and encourage safer road use through grassroots community engagement. Much to my dismay, this section was disbanded some 2 years later, and many valuable programs such as Bike Ed were lost. I had no choice to comply but did not agree. In my mind, that decision was the catalyst for change, and I decided that to bring change you must be that change, and I applied for a posting to the Northern Goldfields town of Leonora. In Leonora, I began to practice and implement philosophies previously considered, and thanks to the support and help of the wonderful community of Leonora, in most cases able to accomplish. I became a member of council, and a bit like salt and pepper was in everything. During this period, there were many people and events that left lasting impressions on me, but also I watched powerlessly as our district hospital's capacity was reduced and our doctor left. I was outraged and thought, how can this be? Then came more change. Again, I did not agree, but this time I had no appetite for the struggle and with a heavy heart resigned from the police service. I knew I needed to further grow and hone the skill set I possessed and achieve goals sought, and as a result began a 2-year career in the mining industry in occupational health and safety. About this time, another significant event. I was asked if I'd like to come to council chambers and meet with the then member for Mining and Pastoral Region, Wendy Duncan. Immediately I was engaged and listened intently, as with the help of a basic map, Wendy explained the bold initiative which we know today as Royalties for Regions. Later I was invited to attend a meeting with Brendan Grills in a pub in Kalgoorlie. I understood his vision and shared his and Wendy's passion for regional WA and how it would be achieved through Royalties for Regions, and became a member of the WA Nationals. I felt the pieces had fallen into place, and here was a vehicle I could use to channel and focus my wish for a better regional WA. I now knew there was reason and purpose for the opinions and beliefs I'd begun to form those years ago, and focused to return to the police service and pick up on the thread I had left behind. In February 2008, I re-engaged at the Kalgoorlie Police Station as the Crime Prevention and Diversity Officer. I worked hard to achieve change within the areas of youth justice and applied learned community engagement practices. My story is unremarkable in many ways. However, there was a time when I sat precariously on the ledge and my life may well have taken a different direction. It was a robust life, to say the least, growing up in Lockridge, with temptation ever present. Many of my mates had good, loving, hard-working parents who cared deeply for their sons, but for some reason were unable to prevent them becoming engaged in harmful pursuits, which later turned to crime. I had all the same contributing factors in my life, but while no saint, was more fortunate. Despite our best efforts, many young people sit at the same edge. It is fair to say the majority will progress through their young lives, making mistakes, but like me, living to tell the tale. Most will usually change their ways at 18 when the Young Offenders Act no longer affords them an out and adult laws apply, but there are others who are not so lucky. I acknowledge and praise the continued work and effort of many within the justice system who strive to achieve better outcomes for juvenile offenders and the families who love them. However, there remains an upper echelon of young, prolific priority offenders who do not engage in diversion programs and believe for them there is no bright future. They are destined to fall through the cracks and sadly in some cases will never know or live a life they may otherwise have. Insanity defined. Doing the same old things and expecting a different result. If you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you've always got. But I believe there is more that can be done. I believe change is constant and development optional. I believe we can deliver meaningful change and secure better outcomes with a concerted effort designed to close the gaps. These are the beliefs and opinions I formed years ago, came to understand, harness, and that have compelled me to become a Member of Parliament. This said, I feel there is a desire for change and a growing groundswell of support as recent media, political and judicial comment attest. I've been fortunate in being able to take my place in Parliament earlier than fellow members-elect and have used this time to travel and speak with people in some of the communities within my mining and pastoral electorate. During those travels, I've seen firsthand and heard many stories of how Royalties for Regions delivers opportunity for change. I've been fortunate in being able to take my change. Unfortunately, not always with everything or in the manner we would all like, but as I said, country folk are proud, practical, hard-working and resilient individuals who are fierce defenders of community. I have been told by many whom share the city-based view that the bush now has enough town recreation centres and too much Royalties for Regions funding has been spent on projects less important than regional infrastructure such as roads. This is a nonsense. The greater need for regional development is not lost on communities, and many continually strive with neighbouring towns to find better ways to develop, keep existing families together and encourage new families to make their homes in the bush. Therefore, I would be mindful of passing judgment without knowledge or making decisions remotely from the city. The very core elements which underpin regional towns and feed the spirit are found alive and well in dedicated community infrastructure. For many, they provide a place to come together, sharing good and bad times and be enjoyed in 1,000 different ways, because living in regional Australia should not mean putting up with second best or doing without. We must continue to support rural business in whatever forms it takes, from agriculture to mining and everything in between. We must provide opportunity for diversity and continued growth through self-determination. There is no panacea or quick fix, but to further reduce avenues for regional communities to access funding will achieve nothing more than to increase the existing hardship of many rural families. I'm proud to be a member of the West Australian Nationals and share in a better regional WA. Royalties for Regions will continue to deliver, not through pointless political point scoring, but from hard work, vision and continued good stewardship. I appreciate that every week all around this great state, mums and dads sit down to balance the most important budget of all, the family budget. I have listened to a lot of empty political rhetoric and false promise. I have listened to those who seem to think that to shout that empty promise the loudest makes the better point, but often with no considered meaningful solution offered. I'm not perfect, do not carry a magic wand, ride a white horse or shoot silver bullets, but I do share the desire and passion to do better for regional families. I've not achieved this on my own. There has literally been a cast of thousands who in one way or another have contributed to my life, touched my soul, and in their own way played a significant part in my journey. To them I say thank you. To Lisa, Charles, Margie, Dorothy and Francis, thank you. To my WA Nationals family, thank you. To the people who took the time to cast their vote for me, a most humbling and lasting experience, thank you. To all my wonderful and supportive family, thank you. To my beautiful and loving partner and daughter, thank you. I would also like to thank the President for his warm welcome and support, Council staff and staff from the Department of Premier and Cabinet for their kind assistance in getting the show on the road. To those members retiring, thank you for your contribution to Parliament, and whilst not yet an old hand, welcome to my fellow members. To those members who have welcomed me into the Council, thank you. I look forward with great anticipation to the next stage of my life, the journey I will travel, the experiences I will share, and the time I will spend working to faithfully serve the community of Western Australia. Thank you.